Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy DeYoung with a special edition of Prophecy Today video. The Israeli elections are complete, but there is no Israeli government in place. Indeed, the elections are over. No clear decision as to who will be the leaders of the next Israeli government. This next government of the Jewish state will have geopolitical ramifications. I asked Bob Maginnis about that.
Well, certainly I think when Shimon Peres makes a decision as to who he's going to nod to and ask to form the government, I anticipate, quite frankly, it's going to be Netanyahu, just because if you look to the right of the center of the members of the parliament or the Knesset there, you'll find that there are more of those that favor Bibi Netanyahu. So Livni would be close, but I do believe that this is going to have ramifications, one, for the situation in Iran, and two, about the U.S. President's ambition to have a two-state solution. Netanyahu says no to that, and I think that clearly it's going to be somewhat distressing to some of the Arab neighbors that have large Palestinian populations. And you would look into the north, in Lebanon, Jordan, and, of course, the Egyptians who want to find a solution. So I really think that his opposition to the two-state solution, his opposition to allowing Iran to continue doing what it's doing, and also his hard stand against Hamas and Hezbollah, are a very different change than perhaps what the Obama people want, and much less the Arabs in the region.
Bob Maginnis. There is a process that takes place to form the new government. David Dolan, longtime Jerusalem journalist, gives us the understanding of how that all comes together.
Peres has to make a decision soon, but that's just the first choice. Then that person has 42 days to try to form a coalition government. Actually, I believe the initial period is shorter than that, but they're able to get extensions up to 42 days, so that's well over a month. And then if he does ask Livni and she doesn't succeed, then he has to find someone else. And, of course, that would be Benjamin Netanyahu, and then he would have the same period of time. We could be talking about April or so before we know who's actually leading the country.
Thanks, David. We appreciate that so very much. Winkie Medad, Israel Medad, is a longtime politico in Israel, having served with a Knesset member and has been involved in this process of selecting a prime minister. Winkie says that Benjamin Netanyahu has the best chance of being the next prime minister.
Well, the next prime minister would definitely be Netanyahu. He is the only one at the present moment who has a possibility of forming any sort of coalition. Barak with 13 is a non-starter. Kadima, she doesn't know anything at all about real politics yet. She's still learning. The only reason she came up above Netanyahu is because all the left-wingers were afraid of Netanyahu and Lieberman and ran away from their own parties. It looks like Netanyahu will get the nod, and he'll probably be able to set up a small 63, 65-seat coalition and then work from there, dropping off a few and adding on a few later on as it goes.
I also mentioned to Winkie Medad that God is still in charge.
Well, true, and as I think it refers to Noach, sometimes you just got to walk with God in an innocent way in order to get to the tough decisions that have to be made in this world in order to reflect better what we see comes from the Bible and the prophetic writings in order to be a world that would be at one with God.
Thanks, Winkie. I love that phrase, walking with God. That's exactly what we need to be doing. Itimar Marcus of Palestinian Media Watch says that it does not matter to the Palestinian people who heads up the next Israeli government.
For the Palestinians, whichever leader is going to rule Israel doesn't seem to really matter for them. They see all Israelis as evil. They even, in fact, had a cartoon in one of the newspapers where they showed two infants wrapped up in what clearly were garments of death, garments that the infants would be buried in. This was a cartoon in the official newspaper. Each one was written on the garments. One was saying, "I'm voting for Kadima," and the other one said, "I'm voting for Likud." The point of the cartoon was it doesn't really matter. They see all Israelis as murderers. And this is part of their propaganda for many years to their people, that all Israelis are cruel, that all Israelis want to kill them, that all Israelis want to harm them, and therefore Israelis are worth hating. So I would say that in the essence, the way they've treated the elections is a reflection of their long-term ideology of portraying all Israelis as evil.
Itimar Marcus of Palestinian Media Watch. I now bring to this discussion David Wilder. He is the spokesperson for the oldest Jewish community in the history of the world. We're talking about Hebron, established some 4,000 years ago by Abraham. And I talked to David Wilder about Benjamin Netanyahu and the possibility of him being prime minister. What about if he does take that position? What will be the outcome of the division of the city of Jerusalem and the possible evacuation of Judea and Samaria?
Well, first of all, we got to keep in mind that Bibi Netanyahu is the one that in 1997 split Hebron into two parts and then gave most of it to the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat at the time, the terrorists, and then he later signed the Y Accords. We certainly hope that Bibi Netanyahu has repented, and when he becomes prime minister, his actions will fit his words. He's always said the right things, and he continues to speak about how we should not make any concessions to the terrorists, and he speaks against the expulsion from Gush Katif almost 4 years ago. So we very, very much hope and pray that Benjamin Netanyahu, as prime minister, will not return to the ways of old, and that this time he will make sure that we stay in all of the land that is part of our land, part of Eretz Yisrael, part of the land of Israel. And we certainly don't expect him chopping apart Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people. Should those things happen, I think his government won't last very long. I think it will fall very fast should he decide to go ahead and turn to the left rather than to the right.
That was David Wilder. Elwood McQuaid, who is the executive director of the great magazine Israel My Glory, is also a prolific author. Many books on the prophetic scenario that will unfold. And Elwood can give us the prophetic significance of these most recent Israeli elections.
Bible-believing Christians really need to get on a job to study biblical prophecy and understand the trends that are going on now. First of all, the Gentile nations attempting to impose their will on Israel and the Jewish state, forces in the Jewish state saying, we're not going to do this, you're going to have a clash that is inevitable, and of course the Arab states that want to destroy the very existence of Israel. So what do you have? You have Jerusalem and you have Israel in the middle, and this clash of great forces that want to control it, and when Israel says no, you're going to have big trouble. Jerusalem will be a cup of trembling. I can feel it trembling here now.
Thanks, Elwood. You know, with what you had to say and what I understand is happening today, it seems like the rapture is very, very close at hand. Well, this has been a special edition of Prophecy Today video focusing on the recent Israeli elections. Let me give you a couple of thoughts to think about as we conclude our time together. The next Israeli government is a human government that will lead the Jewish state into the future. But God has a better plan for the Jewish people in the future. That is according to Bible prophecy, and you need to think about several things with me. You know, democracy in the Middle East is on display in the Jewish state of Israel, as these most recent elections have revealed to the world. Though no clear-cut outcome has been determined, the human government in Israel will form a government most likely in the next several weeks. God himself put human government in place 4,500 years ago, right after the worldwide flood. That's Genesis chapter 9 and verse 6. God then brought into existence a theocracy when he brought to this world the Jewish people. The Jewish people 4,000 years ago were established as a theocracy to be a witness to the world. That's Genesis chapter 12. Down through the ages, God has used a mix of human government and his Jewish theocracy to accomplish his will. But God's plan is for the Jewish Messiah to set up a theocratic kingdom in Israel. That's found in Daniel chapter 7, verses 13 and 14, when the Most High God, the Ancient of Days, will give to the Son of God, that would be Jesus Christ, a kingdom, a dominion that will be forever. In fact, 2 Samuel chapter 7, the Davidic covenant, says that one of the descendants of David will sit on the throne in Jerusalem, and from that temple where the throne will be located will have a kingdom that will be forever. Again, I say that Jewish Messiah is Jesus Christ, and he is coming. And it seems to be very soon that the rapture will take place, the next event, before the 7-year tribulation period, and then the return of Christ to the earth to set up his kingdom for the Jewish people. The next Jewish government may well see the Messiah, Jesus Christ, come to set up his kingdom. Bible prophecy will be fulfilled. And that is my prophetic perspective on the news, this special edition of Prophecy Today video, focusing on the recent Israeli elections and the process by which they will form a new government to take them into the future. Everything we said on this time together with you indicates that the return of Jesus Christ is close at hand. But you remember, there is an event that must happen before all of Bible prophecy yet to be fulfilled will be fulfilled. And that's the rapture of the church. Jesus shouts, archangel shouts, trump of God sounds, and we'll be caught up to be with him forevermore in the air. By the way, that rapture could take place at any moment. And having said that, there's basically nothing left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until